Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to go through a new room on TryHackMe called Enumeration and Brute Force. We're going to learn how to enumerate and brute force authentication mechanisms. Now, the reason I want to go through this room, it's one that just came out, I think, this week on TryHackMe at the time of this recording, but I haven't done the room myself. But really quickly before jumping on stream, I just glanced at what it's going to cover, and these are things I cover on every single web app pen test I do. Like, these are things I check actively. So if you are interested in being a web app pen tester, doing bug bounty, the things that we're going to encounter on this room are real world things. And maybe after we complete the room, we can look at some HackerOne reports to see how these have been discovered and exploited for real money in the real world. But without any further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. Do want to let you know that this is a free room, at least once again at the time of this recording. So for all of you watching on stream, I already shared the link, but I would encourage you to do this alongside of me. And if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, do it as well. You don't even need a TryHackMe sub, just a free TryHackMe account to do this room. You learn a lot by watching a video of someone going through it, but you learn even more by going through it right alongside of me. So we can imagine we're sitting down together, we're going through this room together, we're learning right alongside one another. But here we go. I already did launch the room. I'm on the TryHackMe VPN. So here is our room right there. Let's just make sure that we can ping it real quick. So we'll ping and we are good. So beautiful. Now, if you're new to the way I do these rooms, I read everything in its entirety. I think when it comes to learning, we have this bad habit of skimming, and when we skim, we miss things, right? So I'm going to read through it in its entirety. I will be your audiobook as we dive into this room, but let's begin with the introduction. Authentication enumeration is a fundamental aspect of security testing, which I will say, yes, it is. I do it on every single web app pen test, concentrating specifically on the mechanisms that protect sensitive aspects of web applications. This process involves methodically inspecting various authentication components ranging from username validation to password policies and session management. Each of these elements is meticulously tested because they represent potential vulnerabilities that, if exploited, could lead to significant security breaches. So what are our objectives? By the end of this room, you will, number one, understand the significance of enumeration and how it sets the stage for effective brute force attacks. Number two, learn advanced enumeration methods, mainly focusing on extracting information from verbose error messages. Number three, comprehend the relationship between enumeration and brute force attacks and compromising authentication mechanisms. And finally, gain practical experience using tools and techniques for both enumeration and brute force attacks. So before starting this room, some basic familiarity, but here's the cool thing. We're doing this room together. So even if you don't have basic familiarity with some of these things, I will guide you through it. I will slow down. I'll also answer questions for those of you who are watching live. Let me look over at chat. Yolando said, "What's up, Hack Smarter? Yesterday was fun. Ready for tonight." Cool, man. I'm ready for tonight as well. Yaya said, woke up early. Got to see you live for the first time. Love the content. Do more cloud things. You do everything I want to do. And when a junior asks me something, I usually suggest your video, THM. Dude, thank you so much for the kind words. Seriously. And thank you for waking up early, joining me live. I do have more cloud things. Maybe, depending on how long this takes, we can jump into a cloud lab. That would be a lot of fun. But thank you for the kind words. Let's continue through here. Deploy the target VM attached to this task by pressing the green Start Machine button. After obtaining the machine's IP address, you can either use the attack box or your own VM to connect to it. And we're going to add to our Etsy host file enum-thm. So I can show you how we're going to do this. We'll copy the IP. We'll go to our terminal. And Etsy host is on Linux, how it resolves domain names to IP addresses. So that's all we're doing is adding this. So you can use Vim, you can use Nano, you can use whatever tool you want. We'll use Nano just because it's a little bit easier than Vim. And we actually have to sudo. We'll do sudo nano Etsy host. Nano is just a text editor, kind of like Notepad in Windows. And the first thing we're going to do is paste in the IP. So we copied it before. We can do paste selection. Whoops, I got the whole thing. But if we didn't do that, you paste in the IP, hit the tab key, and then it's enum-thm. And I know when you look down here, it looks a little bit confusing, like how the heck do I exit out of this craziness? But the caret key just means control. So if you want to exit, we do Control X, and it says, do you want to save it? We're going to press Y for yes, and then finally Control X, actually enter. There we go. And now if we ping enum.thm, we are able to hit it based on that name rather than just the IP. Let's see. Your name here said, I just did this room a few hours ago. Love your streams though, so I'm gonna keep watching. Wait, beautiful. I haven't even gone through this. What are we doing right now? We are doing one of the newer rooms on TryHackMe on enumeration and brute forcing. Just came out this week, diving into it live. Enumeration and brute force, it is a free room, so anyone and everyone can join in on the fun. All right, after 3 minutes, visit there to access the machine. We recommend using the attack box. So I don't know why they recommend the attack box. We'll just have to see if we can do it without the attack box. Otherwise, I will switch over to that. I'm also going to change it up. There we go. We got it. I'm guessing they're going to use Burp Suite for this room. I am going to use Caido. And this is a brand new VM, so I don't have any tools installed. So I need to go install Caido. So let me show off Caido if you've never heard of it. Here is Caido, a lightweight web security auditing toolkit. Caido aims to help security professionals, blah, blah, blah. It's basically like Burp Suite. It's a web proxy auditing tool, but written from the ground up in Rust. And the reason it's better than Burp Suite Community Edition is even on the free version of Caido, it doesn't rate limit you on those automate or intruder attacks, which is really helpful for brute force and fuzzing and all those kinds of things, especially for bug bounty. The Burp Suite Community Edition rate limits you unless you use intruder, what's it called? Turbo intruder or something, where you can use Python scripts to do it, but Caido's a lot easier to use. And that way, I do have to log in. I do have a paid sub to Caido, which I do recommend. It really is an incredible platform. The devs are awesome. So you all are going to look at my face for just a moment while I get logged into Caido. All right, we are in. So here I am in Caido, and when you log in, we are given some information here. We have the cool video from TCM Security. John Hammond also did a really excellent video covering Caido that you can check out on his YouTube channel. Now, there's a few different versions of Caido that you can use. I started with the CLI version, but I do enjoy the desktop version, so I'm going to do the desktop version right here. So we will click that, and it should download to our machine. After it is done downloading, we will open up our terminal. And we'll CD over to our downloads. And there it is right there. And now we can do sudo dpkg/i to install, and then just type in the name. And if you're new to Linux, I'm hitting the tab key on my keyboard to autocomplete what it's filling in. So if we do that, it should install Caido for us. Errors encountered while processing. All right, error processing package Caido installed. Dependency process problems leaving unconfigured. I've never had this issue before. However, package that is not installed. So let's see if I can just install this. How do I install that package? Let's see. Install real-time troubleshooting and Debian. Must just have a different name. Oh, I had that yesterday, and that package is depreciated, so easier to use a CLI version. Gotcha. I wonder if the Caido devs know about that. Otherwise, I'll just drop a note in Discord. All right, that's fine. We'll use the CLI version. Thank you for that, Nefos. I didn't have that issue somewhat recently when I did it, but that's fine. We'll use a CLI version. It's very similar either way. So we can grab the CLI version right here. When one way fails, always have multiple ways of doing it. Good tip for pen testing, good tip for CTFs. But there we go. We'll do tar xf Caido. All right, and now we have the Caido CLI, and the way we can put it in our path is we just echo out our path. We can see our path here on Linux, so we just need to drop the CLI in here. And I also like to name it just Caido instead of Caido CLI. So I'm going to move Caido CLI to just Caido, and then we're going to move Caido to user local bin, and I'm going to have to sudo that. There we go. And now we'll just call this tab Caido, and we'll open up Caido. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a moment while I authenticate one more time. All right, let me go back to sharing my screen. So here we are. Let's give your new instance a name. We'll call this one personal Cali. Register. Allow. Authorization complete. Did it not open? Did I accidentally close it? I probably did. Allow. There we go. Okay, let's get Caido set up. Why do you choose Caido? Is that free? So the reason I choose Caido, at least on stream, is because I normally use Burp Suite Pro in my day job, but I also recognize Burp Suite Pro is not accessible to everyone because of the price. Caido is free. Now, there is a paid sub that you can get, which I have, which I do recommend, but even with the free version of Caido, you still get access to almost all the features, including not being rate limited at all on your brute force attacks, whereas Community Edition, you are super rate limited. But here it is. Usually I don't show this process because I have it installed, but because this is a new VM, I'll show you the full process for setup. So we have it installed. It says, let's get set up by creating a new project. Let's. All right, let's create a project, and we will call this brute force enum lab, create, and blah, blah, blah. Next. Switching projects, got it. Our current project, got it. And now we need to grab our certificate for Burp Suite, just like we do with Burp Suite. So we have our certificate there. Do we have... All right, so let's go ahead and install our certificate. The way we do that is in Firefox, we can go to Settings, start typing certificates, view certificates, import, grab our cert, open, trusted to identify websites. Okay. Okay. We have the cert there, but you know what I don't even have? I don't even have like Foxy Proxy. So we need to get Foxy Proxy. At least I don't think it comes default in. No, it doesn't. So let's grab Foxy Proxy real quick for Firefox. We'll add that to Firefox. Add. Also going to pull this to a new tab. All right. We'll allow it to run in private windows. We're almost done. Let's go ahead and switch back over to our other tab here, and we'll turn on Foxy Proxy. We need to add our proxy, maybe just quick add. No, options, proxies, add here. All right, there we go. We'll call it Caido. Host name is just our local host, like so. Port 8080. The rest of that looks good to me. We'll hit save. And if we go over here and turn on our proxy to Caido, let's see if this will work. Go over to here, drop back to Caido, try and intercept. There we go. So we are successfully intercepting the request now. We can turn that off. There we go. So what did that take me, like 3 minutes to set up Caido? Let's go through authentication and enumeration. And as we do this, I'll also explain how I do this on real web app pen tests every single day. So authentication and enumeration, let's go ahead and dive in. Think of yourself as a digital detective. It's not just about picking up clues, it's about understanding what these clues reveal about the security of a system. This is essentially what authentication and enumeration involves. It's like piecing together a puzzle rather than just ticking off items on a checklist. And what I do is at the beginning of a web app pen test, just as I log into the app, I literally intercept every single request, send it over to repeater just so I can see what it's doing on the back end. You might be interacting with an interesting API you can mess with. A real world example of this is just recently during the authentication portion on a web app, I noticed it was doing this weird URL post request. Like it was sending a post request with a URL there to some backend server, and I was able to get full SSRF with that URL. Not full, it was blind SSRF, but I was able to use that blind SSRF to port scan the backend server as well as internal host because I could see the different response. If the port was closed, it was a much longer response, and if the port was open, it was a short response. So don't forget just looking at every request as you log into an app. You might find something that surprises you. All right, authentication and enumeration is like peeling back the layers of an onion. You remove each layer of a system's security to reveal the real operations underneath. It's not just about routine checks, it's about seeing how everything is connected. So identifying valid usernames. Knowing a valid username lets an attacker focus just on the password. You can figure out usernames in different ways, like observing how the application responds during login or password resets. For example, error messages specify this account doesn't exist or incorrect password can hint at valid usernames, making an attacker's job easier. Additionally, different server responses might indicate a valid user. Also, the response time is another thing that if you do a brute force attack and you look at response time, sometimes if the username doesn't exist and the username does exist, there's a pretty clear difference in the response time, and you can use that to enumerate valid users on the application. Have done that in the real world many, many times. All right, password policies. The guidelines when creating passwords can provide valuable insights into the complexity of the passwords used in an application. By understanding these policies, an attacker can gauge the potential complexity of the passwords and tailor their strategy accordingly. For example, the below PHP code uses regex to require a password that includes symbols, numbers, and uppercase letters. All right, another thing just to throw in here, I've seen it happen pretty often where the password policy is only enforced on the client side and not on the server side, which means if you intercept your request in Burp or in Caido and you set the password as something weak, like just the letter T, it allows you to set the password as the letter T, and that's something you would want the client to be aware of, that you never want to trust the client. You should always enforce things like password complexity requirements on both the client side so the client knows like, hey, this is why the password wasn't accepted, but also on the server side so they can't just intercept the request and then modify it before it hits a server. All right, common places to enumerate. Web apps are full of features that make things easier for users but can also expose them to risks. So registration pages. Web apps typically make the user registration process straightforward and informative by immediately indicating whether an email or username is available. While this feedback is designed to enhance user experience, it can inadvertently serve a dual purpose. If a registration attempt results in a message stating that a username is already taken, the application is unwittingly confirming its existence to anyone trying to register. Attackers exploit this feature by testing potential usernames or emails, thus compiling a list of active users without needing direct access to the underlying database, which is true. Seen it many times. Same with password resets. They are designed to help users regain access to their accounts by entering their details to receive reset instructions. However, the differences in the application's response can unintentionally reveal sensitive information. For example, variations in an app's feedback about whether a username exists can help attackers verify user identities. By analyzing these responses, attackers can refine their list of valid usernames, substantially improving the effectiveness of subsequent attacks. I think on the red team capstone on TryHackMe, you actually have to do that. I'm going off memory, but I remember doing something similar to discover valid users. Verbose errors. Verbose error messages during login attempts or other interactive processes can reveal too much. When these messages differentiate between username not found and incorrect password, like WordPress famously does, they're intended to help users understand their login issues. However, they also provide attackers with definitive clues about valid usernames, which can be exploited for more targeted attacks. And finally, data breach information. Data from previous security breaches is a goldmine for attackers as it allows them to test whether compromised usernames and passwords are reused across different platforms. If an attacker finds a match, it suggests not only that the username is reused, but also potential password recycling, especially if the platform has been breached before. This technique demonstrates how the effects of a single data breach can ripple through multiple platforms, exploiting the connections between various online identities. Once again, something I do in the real world. I actually have a whole YouTube video on this, but for example, if I'm doing a pen test for an organization, I have a paid account over here at dhashed, which allows me, I'm not logged into it now, so I won't show it off, but I can actually use the API as an example, and I can query, let's say I'm trying to pen test TryHackMe. I could query for every email that ends in TryHackMe.com that may have been exposed in a previous data breach, and it will give me a list of emails as well as the passwords in clear text, like one-to-one, so I can actually see what email corresponds to which password. So it's kind of like have I been pwned, but I can actually get the real data as an attacker, and then I'm able to use that data for password spraying attacks. I have a video. Let's see if I can find it. I'm trying to think of what I even would have called the video, but I wrote a script for this, and I have a video that walks through the script. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. So if you want to check out how to do this, I'll pause this. I'll drop a link to this video in the chat via Restream. Let me just grab this link. There we go. And here is my script. And you can get this just off of my GitHub. Right, so it's this password recon script. It does require an active dhash encounter API key, and of course, I am the author. All it's doing is passing your target domain to the API with your API key, and it will print out all of the emails and the passwords in order that you can use it for password spraying, or if the domain doesn't have results. So if you want to see how to use that in the real world, you can check that out. You can create an account on there. It does cost some money, but it's pretty dang affordable. All right, what type of error messages can unintentionally provide attackers with confirmation of valid usernames? Verbose errors, I'm assuming. There we go. All right, drink of water. I look like the V for Vendetta mask IRL. That's how much of a great hacker I am. All right, let's check this out. Understanding verbose errors. Imagine you're a detective with a knack for spotting clues that others might overlook. In the world of web development, verbose errors are like unintentional whispers of a system, revealing secrets meant to be kept hidden. These detailed error messages are invaluable during the debugging process, helping devs understand exactly what went wrong. However, just like an overheard conversation might reveal too much, these verbose errors can unintentionally expose sensitive data to those who know how to listen. Hey, what up, B7H30, Saturday Night Hacking, let's go. Yeah, thanks for jumping in chat, my friend. All right, verbose errors can turn into a goldmine of information, providing insights such as internal paths. Like a map leading to a hidden treasure, these reveal the file paths and directory structures of the application server, which might contain config files or secret keys that aren't visible to a normal user. Something that I see, man, almost every web app pentest, honestly. Sometimes if you just like send junk data to a form, for example, it will give you a full stack trace in the response if you're monitoring the response, and you can see internal paths. Oh, Eric Taylor said, now, hey, Eric Taylor, thank you, dude, again for stopping by. Always an honor to have you here. Have a good evening, and I will see you. I don't know if you're going to DEF CON, but if you're going to be at DEF CON, I'll see you in person in like less than a week. Database details. Offering a sneak peek into the database, these errors might spill secrets like table names and column details. I think we had that on one of the TryHackMe machines that I recently called Injectix. I think I might have my signals crossed though. Finally, user information. Sometimes these errors can even hint at usernames or other personal data, providing clues that are crucial for further investigation. On an actual bug bounty I did, I was able to do this. I found a misconfigured API that did this very thing. Not only did it provide user enumeration, but I could reset MFA, I could get password reset tokens. So I had full account takeover on anyone on this app, and I made $2,000 off of it. It took me literally 5 minutes to find and got paid $2,000. So I count that as a win, but found that on a real web app during some random bug bounty I was doing. All right, inducing verbose errors. Attackers induce verbose errors as a way to force the app to reveal its secrets. Below are some common techniques used to provoke these errors. Invalid login attempts. This is like knocking on every door, right? Knock, knock, knock. By intentionally entering incorrect usernames or passwords, attackers can trigger error messages that help distinguish between valid and invalid usernames. For example, entering a username that doesn't exist might trigger a different error message than entering one that does, revealing which usernames are active. SQL injection. This technique involves slipping malicious SQL commands into entry fields, hoping the system will stumble and reveal information about its database structure. For example, placing a single quote in a login field might cause the database to throw an error, inadvertently exposing details about its schema. For those of you watching live or even after the fact on YouTube, one of my recent videos, we did the Injectix room on TryHackMe, and we saw this multiple times. The way in on one of the login forms was a single quote. Well, that wasn't the way in, but that's how it revealed to us it was vulnerable to SQL injection based on a verbose error message. So if you want to see me doing that in real time, watch the Injectix room when I went through it on TryHackMe, and you'll see me doing that. File inclusion and path traversal. By manipulating file paths, attackers can attempt to access restricted files, coaxing the system into errors that reveal internal paths. For example, using directory traversal sequences could lead to errors that disclose restricted file paths. Form manipulation. Tweaking form fields, which is what I mentioned a little bit ago, or parameters can trick the application, displaying errors that disclose backend logic or sensitive user info. For example, altering hidden form fields to trigger validation errors might reveal insights into the expected data form or structure. Not really with verbose error messages, but another thing I discovered recently on a public web server, so this is public to anyone and everyone, it was a form, and I noticed when I submitted the form and I saw the request, like when I proxied the request, there was once again a URL parameter, and I was like, why is there a URL parameter here? That doesn't make much sense. And then I right-click and inspect and looked at the code and actually said, as a comment, do not change, and it was a URL parameter, so I thought, hey, I'm a hacker, I'm finna change your URL parameter, and once again got SSRF, it could scan internal hosts with that hidden URL parameter. All right, application fuzzing, sending unexpected inputs to various parts of the application to see how Reacts can help identify weak points. For example, tools like Burp Suite or Caido or OWASP Zap are used to automate the process, bombarding the app with varied payloads to see which ones provoke informative errors. The role of enumeration and brute forcing. I'm pretty sure we're eventually going to get practical. When it comes to breaching authentication, enumeration and brute forcing often go hand in hand. User enumeration. Discovering valid usernames sets the stage, reducing the guesswork and subsequent brute force attacks and exploiting verbose errors. The insights gained from these errors can illuminate aspects like password policies and account lockout mechanisms, paving the way for more effective brute force strategies. Now, one thing I do want to note, if you are looking at this on a bug bounty, for example, do not randomly brute force other users. Instead, make your own demo account and then have a list of users you know that don't exist with your demo account in there to see if you can show this. You don't want to just randomly brute force accounts in a public web app because there's a good chance you're going to lock out accounts, and that sucks, and it's going to be out of scope on a pentest or a bug bounty. In summary, verbose errors are like breadcrumbs leading attackers deeper into the system, providing them with the insights needed to tailor their strategies and potentially compromise security in ways that could go undetected until it is too late. Enumeration and authentication forms. Oh, look, they even have a HackerOne report. Amazing. In this HackerOne report, the attacker was able to enumerate users using the website's forgot password functionality. I have done that multiple times just in the past month, so real world attack. Similarly, we also enumerate emails and login forms. For example, navigate it there and put in any email address in the input field. When you input an invalid email, blah, blah, indicate email has not been registered yet. Let's look at this report real quick. I love looking at HackerOne. So user enumeration through forgot password. User enumeration is possible through forgot password. It's the 500 error with no account for that ID found. And valid bug. Awesome. And we can check out, where does it want me to go to? This right here. So we can go ahead and go to this. And we'll do a not a real account, right? So can I zoom in? So we'll do please subscribe at hacksmarter.org. If I could type. I did not click that. Stop. And blah, blah. Submit. Email does not exist, right? Pretty obvious. However, if the email is already registered, the website will respond with invalid password error message, indicating that the email exists in the database, but the password is incorrect. So let's try that with test@test.com. And we'll submit. Invalid password. Now, that in and of itself isn't a valid bug, generally speaking. It's only valid if you can script it out. So, for example, if after doing this 3 times, we are stopped by Google reCAPTCHA or we're rate limited, that's not really a valid bug because that's a valid defense to stop username enumeration. So, the way you prove this to a client is you script it out with Caido Automate or Burp Suite Intruder with at least 50 requests showing that nothing stopped you from enumerating. All right, below is a Python script that will check for valid emails in the target web app. Save the code below as script.py. I kind of want to do this with Caido instead. And I think it's a little more real world. Like, you're probably not going to sit down and think, okay, I'm going to write an entire Python script in order to enumerate whether or not emails exist. You're probably going to just do this through Caido or Burp Suite Intruder, but I'm guessing the reason they're using a Python script is because you're so rate limited on Burp Suite Community Edition. So let me show you how to do this with Caido instead of the Python script, a kind of an alternative method. We have our list of usernames right here, so let me grab all of these usernames. All right, we'll grab all these usernames, and we need to get this request in our system. So we'll just say Tyler at hacksmarter.org. .org. We know that that's not going to work, and we'll jump over to Caido. We'll turn on queuing. We'll hit submit. We'll go over to Caido. I'm going to do Control-M on my keyboard to send that over to automate. We can go ahead and let it go now. But now we have it in automate. I want to close this out. There we go. And we just want to highlight this is what we want to test. This email right there. We will add that as our payload. Password doesn't matter because we're just working on username enumeration. And finally, we can change our type over to simple list. And we go ahead and paste in all those emails right there. I thought it was 100 emails. Why do I see 2,000? Username's top 100. Okay, that's definitely more than top 100, but we'll go with it. I'll just be able to show off Caido even better. So the reason TryHackMe is using this Python script is because if you try to do this with Burp Suite Community Edition like they showcase in this room, it's going to take way too long. But even with the free edition of Caido, let me show you how we can really power through this. So we have this. We want to do our preprocessor. Let's make sure we're URL encoding stuff, which we are, so we should be good there. Go over to our settings here and watch this. We can just turn up our number of workers to 40 because YOLO, and we'll be able to run through this list really quickly without trying to write a custom Python script. Let's go ahead and click run, and I'll show you how fast this is. And it's just rocking through these requests, right? We're already at 700 requests after a few seconds. We'll let it keep going. I think we're almost done. I think it was like 2,000 something, right? There we go. And now if we sort it by length, we can see we have a valid user right here. And we know that because of the different length, it says invalid password. So our valid user is canderson@gmail.com. So no crazy Python script needed. We use Caido. We ran through it super fast, and we found our valid user. Kevin said, my OpenVPN isn't getting connected. I don't know how to fix this problem. You can try to re-download or regenerate your VPN file and TryHackMe. Otherwise, you can drop in the THM Discord. Hey, Tyler, be attending B-Sides NYC this October. I won't be, my friend. I live far from NYC. Otherwise, I would love to be there. All right, so we did that. Once you've downloaded, blah, blah, blah. So once again, I'm not using that. I'm using Caido. And what is a valid email from the list? Well, if we go over to Caido, we have canderson@gmail.com. So let's grab that. Go over to here, and we'll just change this so it's no longer URL encoded to @. There we go. Exploiting vulnerable password reset logic. Password reset mechanism is an important part of user convenience in modern web applications. However, their implementation requires careful security considerations because poorly secured password reset processes can be easily exploited. And yes, they can. Let me just give you an example of this. Real web app I discovered this in. When I went to reset the user's password, you only saw this if you intercepted the request, but literally in the response, it gave me the user's one-time password reset code, so I had full unauthenticated account takeover on any account that I wanted. Once again, real web app. So you'd be surprised. Just be curious, intercept every request, look at the response, and some of the things you might just find. Our email-based reset. When a user resets their password, the app sends an email containing a reset link or a token to the user's registered email address. The user then clicks on this link, which directs them to a page where they can enter a new password and confirm it, or a system will automatically generate a new password for the user. This method relies heavily on the security of the user's email account and the secrecy of the link or the token sent. We have security question-based reset. This involves the user answering a series of pre-configured security questions they had set up when creating their account. If the answers are correct, the system allows the user to proceed with resetting their password. While this method adds a layer of security by requiring information only the user should know, it can be compromised if an attacker gains access to personally identifiable information, which can sometimes be easily found or guessed. Or you just look at the user's Facebook page and they fill out one of those survey things like, hey, what's your favorite pet? What's your favorite color? What city did you grow up in? What is your mother's maiden name? Like, bro, don't answer those questions because hackers are taking that information and guessing your password. SMS-based reset. This functions similarly to email-based reset, but uses SMS to deliver a reset code or link directly to the user's mobile phone. Once the user receives the code, they can enter it in on the provided web page to access the password reset functionality. This method assumes that access to the user's phone is secure, but it can be vulnerable to SIM swapping attacks or intercepts. Each of these methods has its vulnerabilities. For predictable tokens, if the reset tokens are predictable, right, you can guess or brute force your way to generate valid reset URLs. One way to test this, I'm not sure if there's a way in Caido, but in Burp Suite, it's called Burp Suite Sequencer. Just show you this real quick. It allows you to analyze a randomness and a sample of tokens. You can just send the request to Sequencer, and it will grab a bunch of tokens and analyze them to see if they are secure or if they're able to be guessed. Token expiration issues. Tokens that remain valid for too long or do not expire immediately after use provide a window of opportunity for attackers. It's crucial that tokens expire swiftly to limit this window. On a bug bounty or web app pen test, really easy way to check this is use the token to reset your password, then try to use the token again. If the token allows you to reset your password twice, that is a valid bug bounty or a valid vulnerability you want to report to a client. Insufficient validation. The mechanisms for verifying a user's identity, like security questions or email-based authentication, might be weak and susceptible to exploitation if the questions are too common or the email account is compromised. Information disclosure. Any error message that specifies whether an email address or username is registered can inadvertently help attackers in their enumeration efforts, confirming the existence of accounts. And finally, insecure transport. The transmission of reset links or tokens over non-HTTPS connections can expose these critical elements to interception by network eavesdroppers. I haven't really seen that much, if ever. I'm sure it's out there. I just haven't come across it myself. Exploiting predictable tokens. Tokens that are simple, predictable, or have long expiration times can be particularly vulnerable to interception or brute force. For example, the below code is used by the vulnerable app hosting the predictable tokens lab. So we have our token, a random number between 100 and 200. Update the user's reset token where email, token where email equals whatever, and then it's giving our token set to the email. The code above sets a random 3-digit PIN as a reset token of the submitted email. Since this token doesn't employ mixed characters, it can be easily brute forced. Yes, it can. So let's go over to this lab, and once again, we'll show how to do it with Caido. Navigate to the applications bar, input admin input field, and click submit. So I can probably just do this. Let's go through here. Forgot password, click here. All right. Admin, submit. All right, password reset link has been set to your email. Blah, blah. The web application uses this reset link. So we can grab this. All right, so we'll go to this reset link. And of course, invalid token. Let's go over to Caido. Turn on intercept, turn on queuing, go to this URL, go back to Caido, Control M to send it over to automate, and then we can turn queuing off. And over in automate, we can just grab this number, and I think it was what, 1 to 200, or was it 300, or 100 to 300 to 200. All right. So in automate, we have our token right here. We can just add that. And I think if we just switch over to numbers, for example, right here, technically we could start at 100. So let's start at 100 and we'll end at 201. And we'll hit run. And we'll run through all these requests. If we look at our status or our length, we have one where the length is different right here. And that one tells us, hey, your new password is this. And it's giving us the password. The reset token was 184. So we have the password for the admin user right there. We can jump back over to the room and log in as the user. Which was it admin@admin.com or something? Admin@admin.com. Admin@admin.com. Go back to Caido. There's our password. We'll copy that. Drop it in there and submit. There we go. And we have that. I'm guessing they use Burp. Burp is very similar again. Use Crunch to generate a list of numbers, blah, blah. So like in Caido, it was just built in. So once again, just showing how cool Caido is compared to Burp Community Edition. It'll take some time for using Burp Suite Community Edition. Yeah, well, it won't take some time if you're using Caido because Caido's cooler. All right, and what is the flag? Oh, it's on this page. Let me go over here. There's our flag. So far, so good, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep on going. Explain HTTP basic authentication. All right, something I also see all the time in web apps, but in APIs in particular. Basic authentication offers a more straightforward method when securing access to devices. It requires only a username and password, making it easy to implement and manage on devices with limited processing capabilities. Network devices such as routers typically utilize basic auth to control access to their administrative interfaces. In this scenario, the primary goal is to prevent unauthorized access with minimal setup. While basic authentication does not offer the robust security features provided by more complex schemes like OAuth or token-based auth, its simplicity makes it suitable for environments where session management and user tracking are not required or are managed differently. I'm going to add 1 hour to my room real quick. For example, in devices like routers that are primarily accessed for configuration changes rather than regular use, the overhead of maintaining session states is unnecessary and could complicate device performance. HTTP basic auth is defined here, which specifies that the creds, username and password, should be transported as a base 64 encoded string within the HTTP authorization header. This method is straightforward but not secure over non-HTTP connections, as base64 is not an encryption method and can be easily decoded. The real threat often comes from weak creds that can be brute force. HTTP basic auth provides a simple challenge response mechanism for requesting user credentials. So you can see it this. It asks for our credentials. We take our credentials, we base 64 encode the username with a double dot and then a password, and then that's how we authenticate. Where credentials, yep, just like what I said. To demonstrate, we'll go to our basic auth lab. And there it is there. Input any username and password to capture the basic auth request using burp. Right, you can see it there. Send it to intruder. I'm seeing it go through here. I'll show you this all in Caido. I just want to see what it's all doing. Next is configuring the payloads. Go to the payloads tab. So are we using admin as the password? Yep. Okay. I see what it's doing. All right. We'll show this in Caido. If this will work. Being a little slow. So we need to first grab our request. So we'll do that over on this lab. We'll just do admin test. Go over to Caido here. Go to intercept. Turn on forwarding. Hit sign in. And we don't want that one. Here it is, our basic auth right there. So we can go ahead and do Control M to send that over to automate. We'll go over to that, and just to show you this base64, if we grab this string right here and we go over to our terminal, we can very quickly base64 decode this in our terminal by doing echo in the parameter, pipe it over to base64-D for decode, and you can see it is admin test. Now I haven't done this particular attack in Caido, so this will be interesting. What are we doing for our password? Okay, once decoded, how to decode string. Okay, here's the password list. Under 500 worst passwords, so we're going to do admin and this password. It will be interesting if I can do all of this in Caido or if I have to script this out. I'm very curious about this. So if we do this, and I add this, and we'll go to, I wonder how this will work. Let's grab all of these passwords. And we'll go back over to Caido. We'll do simple list, pasting all of our passwords in our preprocessors. So this is the part that I'm not sure if Caido is going to be able to do, but let's see if we can figure it out. So we can do a prefix, and our prefix is going to be admin, like so. Can I add that? All right, so we're going to URL encode. We don't really need to URL encode, I don't think. So we can maybe remove that. We do need our prefix of admin. And then we're going to hit it with the password. But we also need a base 64 encode it. So can we do a workflow and base 64 encode? Let's add that. And I wonder if this will work in Caido. We're going to add the prefix admin. Then it's going to put our password in there, and then it's going to do the base 64 encoded workflow. That works in my head. Whether or not it will work in practice, I have no idea. Let's go over to settings here. Let's jump this up to 40 because YOLO. Let's see what happens. And we'll hit run and see if I did this right or not. All right. Is it done? Hey, I did it right. Freaking beautiful. Good job, Tyler. So the way they show it on Burp, I actually think Caido was a little more even easier. Once again, I've never even done that attack in Caido before. I've done it in Burp, but that was super easy. So kudos to Caido once again for carrying us through and way faster than Burp Suite Community Edition by a lot. Use Hydra instead of Burp to brute force the password. I use Caido, so I'm going to say that's good. I already use an alternative tool. OSINT. All right, let's scroll up, zoom out a little bit. All right, Wayback URLs in Google Dorks. Digging into a web app's past can be as revealing as examining its present. Think of the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine as a time machine. I think on a recent stream we looked at Miniclip. We all went on a trip down memory lane and used that to look at Miniclip. It lets you travel back and explore older versions of websites. One thing that this is helpful for is API documentation. Sometimes there's an API v1 that's still like active, but there's no documentation on it, but you can get to the docs through this. Uncovering files and directories that are no longer visible but might still linger on the server. These relics can sometimes provide a backdoor right into the present system. For example, using TryHackMe as a target, we can see all the website's past versions from 2018 to the present, and we can go ahead and just look at that ourselves. All right, we'll do. All right, tryhackme.com. Let's see what TryHackMe looked like at first in 2018. Here is our website, and we'll pull one of these up. Learning cybersecurity made easy. TryHackMe takes a pain out of teaching by allowing teachers, blah, blah, blah. The original TryHackMe. Beautiful. 18 the present. To dump all the links that are saved in the Wayback Machine, we can use a tool called Wayback URLs hosted in GitHub. We can easily install this on our machine by using the below commands. Note, installing this tool is out of scope for this room. It's also recommended to install this tool using your own VM. Well, let's go ahead and give this a shot and try this myself. I don't think I've ever used this tool. So let me grab it. Oh, by Tom Nom Nom. Amazing. All right, we'll go over to Home, Tyler. Do I have a TryHackMe folder? I don't. And we'll just make a directory, enumerate. Enumerate brute force module. We'll git clone that in. Back URLs. Clear. ls, it's go. We can just do go build and we don't have it installed. So sudo apt install golang go. Oh, so we have that same thing that we encountered with Caido, this outdated lib webkit. Interesting. All right, let's see if this will work. There we go. That fixed it for us. And now we stare at the computer while it slowly installs Go. And I guess while it does this, we can just look at this room and finish it out. So we're not just staring at my screen. But we're going to run this command, go build. That's what I was trying to do before. All right, this is still, oh, there we go, it's done. ls go build. And it should spit out a binary for us to use. And it did. Wayback URLs H, there it is. And are we going to hit TryHackMe? Yeah, we are. So we'll do that. Wayback URLs, tryhackme.com. And we'll see if it works, ladies and gentlemen. Let's find out. Beautiful. Oh, why removing Caido? We didn't remove Caido, Fasky. I had an issue in the beginning of the stream with something that was outdated. It was removing an old version of Caido, so you can ignore that. But here we go. We have our TryHackMe links all here. So if we were doing bug bounty or something, we could enumerate into that more and check it out. Google Dorks. This is where your savvy with search engine shines. By crafting specific search queries known as Google Dorks, you can find information that wasn't meant to be public. These queries can pull up everything from exposed admin directories to logs containing passwords and indices of sensitive directories, which I've done this before, doing my own little digging and searching into things. I'll let you do that on your own, but you literally just type that into Google. But on whatever website you're doing a pen test or a bug bounty on in order to do it. So example.com shouldn't expose anything sensitive on stream. Well, it doesn't even work on that. But if we were going after like I think TryHackMe will be fine to search for. We can see this, right? Some information about TryHackMe and admin type stuff. All right, click me to proceed to the next task. Conclusion. Conclusion. Throughout this room, we have explored various aspects of enumeration and brute force attacks on web apps, equipping you with the knowledge and practical skills needed to conduct thorough security assessments. So key takeaways. Effective enumeration. Proper enumeration is crucial for identifying potential vulnerabilities on web apps. Using the right tools and techniques can reveal valuable information that aids in planning further attacks. Brute force efficiency. Optimizing brute force attacks involves creating intelligent word lists, managing attack parameters, and avoiding detection mechanisms like rate limiting and account lockout. And finally, ethical responsibility. Always conduct enumeration and brute force attacks with explicit permission from the system owner. Unauthorized attacks are illegal and can have severe consequences. I can now attack authentication forms complete. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have successfully completed the room. Thank you for hanging out with me on this journey. We just completed, let me get the name right. If my computer will scroll, there we go. The enumeration and brute force module here on TryHackMe. So I hope you learned something. Hope you found this helpful. And look, I will see you guys in the next one.